Okay, God, please, I just want to get out of here. I just want to go home. I'm tired of these fucking blocks telefragging me and throwing me back down to hell. No, please. Metroid, a series I love but could have potentially never played. Growing up around the age of like 8 to 10, my family was renovating our house while we stayed with my grandparents in their basement apartment. And there, left behind by some cousins who had lived there before, I found some cartridges for The World Ends With You on DS, which is a whole other video for another day, and Metroid Zero Mission. And once I popped Metroid Zero Mission into my DS, I was instantly enthralled with it. The world, the power suit, the anticipation of what upgrade I'd get next, all of it. It blew my mind as a kid, but once beating Zero Mission, it unlocked Metroid NES, or as I like to call it, Nestroid, and my stupid tiny baby brain, upon booting it up and playing it for a bit, somehow thought it was like a demake of Zero Mission that was made for fun, and I thought that for years, even after buying Metroid on the 3DS Virtual Console and beating it in a few days during the summer. Obviously, I learned pretty quickly after that Metroid on NES was in fact the first game in the series and not a demake, but after playing it all the way through way back when, I chalked it up to aging poorly and not really being worth playing today. But recently, with the announcement of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and having to wait until 2025 to play it, I decided to revisit all the Metroid games, 2D and 3D. Typically, like when Dread was announced, I avoided the original Metroid and the OG Metroid 2 as well, and I just played the remakes. But this time, I was curious. I've grown a lot as a person, and I'm hopefully a lot better at games nowadays. For some background on the game though, Metroid was developed by Nintendo R&D 1, being directed by Satoru Okada, the game scenario being written by Makoto Kano, the game's OST being composed by Hirokazu Tanaka, and artists and programmers Hiroji Kayotake, Hirofumi Matsuoka, and Yoshio Sakamoto, that last name being very important to the Metroid series today, being brought onto the project after working on Wrecking Crew. Metroid was created with the desire to combine the 2D platforming of Mario and the exploration of Zelda, and took inspiration from Ridley Scott's Alien, and making the enemies you fight creepy, HR Geeker-inspired creatures unlike anything else Nintendo had made at the time. I mean, look at this insane original design for Ridley. If this design was carried into the future games, Metroid probably would have given me a lot more nightmares as a kid than it did. After about 10 months in development, Metroid released a great critical reception, selling 2.73 million copies. There just wasn't anything like it at the time, and with the shock reveal that Samus was a girl, something that's common knowledge today, it cemented itself in video game history, being an innovative starting point of a genre that many, including myself, just can't get enough of. But is Metroid really worth playing today? And did it really age as poorly as I remember? Let's finally boot it up and find out. Upon opening the game, which I'm playing on the Switch Online NES emulator, we're greeted by what is probably the most iconic track in the series, starting out with a feeling of dread, trudging into the unknown, but then spirals into a hopeful tune, almost as if asking if you're ready. If you sit on the title screen for a bit, you get this message. Emergency order. Defeat the Metroid of the planet Zebeth and destroy the mother brain, the mechanical life vein. Galaxy Federal Police, M510. This is a bit of the story, but not the full picture. The reason the adventure is happening in the first place is this. Far into the future, space pirates attack a Galactic Federation research vessel and steal newly discovered organisms called Metroids from the planet SR-388. Metroids are a massive threat, able to latch onto any creature, draining its life energy while killing it in the process. The space pirates plan to expose the Metroids to beta rays to replicate them and use them as biological weapons to destroy all that oppose them. The Federation, having tracked down the space pirates to the planet Zibs, attack the space pirate stronghold, but are fought off as Zebus is a natural fortress. And they retreat. They decide to send in a lone bounty hunter, Samus Aran, to infiltrate the stronghold and destroy Mother Brain, who controls the fortress's defense systems, and destroy the Metroids that were taken there. And that's where the game itself starts off. The game controls are a bit loose, but I got used to them eventually. Not ideal, and I'd rather they were more tight, but the game is doing its best to hold itself together as is. We can also aim and shoot directly up and to the sides. No octo-directional aiming here. And of course, we can jump. I head over to the left and grab the morph ball, and here you'll notice that when you get an upgrade, there's no name, no introduction to how it works, just an item get tune, and you keep going. Of course, back in the 80s when this game came out, you had the instruction manual which would tell you what these items were and what they did, and I believe there's digital scans of the instruction manuals on the NSO emulators, but if you didn't have any of that, just experiment a bit and you'll figure out what your new gizmo does. It's not that hard. The NES only has like 4 buttons and a D-pad after all. Hi, Future Joey here. So the morph ball, I didn't explain what that does. It essentially makes you small because there's no fucking way they could have fit a crawling animation on the NES. The game probably would have shit itself. Anyway, back to the video. Initially, I was going to play blind, no map or anything, no save states. Future games would have mini-maps and full maps as a feature to help navigate whatever planet you're on, but Metroid 1 doesn't. And with rooms repeating the same if not similar layouts, it's very easy to get lost and turned around. And after dying a few times and getting frustrated, I finally decided that I should use a map, and it made the game a lot more fun to navigate. Metroid is better played as a guide game. Without a guide, it's going to take you a long time to beat, and that was more feasible back when I was barely a teenager on summer break with a lot more time, but nowadays, not so much. Anyways, after heading to the right, down this main vertical shaft and continuing on, I grabbed my first missile tank and promptly died again. Missiles are toggled on or off with the select button, and for now, we want to save these for red doors, which can only be opened with 5 missiles. Missiles are also a great and devastating option against bosses, and they tend to one-shot smaller enemies, despite me saving missiles for the bosses almost exclusively. Heading straight through this first area, Brinstar, we grab our first energy tank, an upgrade that would be a staple of the series, fully restoring and increasing your maximum energy, essentially your health, by 99. There are 8 of them in the whole game, but you can only really have a max of 6, making the other 2 more of like a one-time use health restore station. But anyway, we're here to get bombs and— oh fuck, hang on, I'm 3 short. Let me ask the locals for some change. Yeah, so enemies are kind of stingy with pickups, sometimes dropping health 80 times in a row, sometimes only dropping missiles, and many times they drop nothing at all. And there aren't any health or missile recharge stations in this game, so if you die or are low on missiles or energy, your best bet is finding one of these tubes that spits out respawning enemies and just farming them for drops until you're back to full. It's the worst thing about this game, especially since dying weirdly resets you to 30 health no matter how many E-tanks you have. So if you die a lot, you're probably going to be spending a majority of your playtime just trying to get back to full health, just for the fighting chance of progressing. At least while farming, we can hear the upgrade room theme, which kind of gives off a feeling of mystery. Like, what's the upgrade going to be? What's behind this red door? Who left this upgrade here? After grabbing the ice beam, and ignoring the wave beam because beams don't stack in this game, you need the ice beam to beat the game, but that's a whole other can of worms, we get to an elevator. Elevators break up different sections of the map and load us into other areas, while also acting as a sort of checkpoint, where if you die in that area, you respawn at the elevator, this one taking us down to Norfair. We're coming down here to grab the high jump boots, whose name is self-explanatory. But also, we're gonna get the best item in the game, one of the most iconic upgrades in Metroid history, and video games in general, the screw attack. This upgrade in every game practically makes you untouchable. When you jump while moving left or right, you'll start somersaulting, and with the screw attack, if you jump into an enemy, they die instantly. I went for this pretty early, specifically because it'll make getting through the copy-pasted hallways just for collecting energy and missile tanks a lot easier. However, in Metroid 1, it's weirdly not guaranteed that you won't take a hit while screw attacking, because sometimes it just doesn't fucking work. Sometimes an enemy will just hit you out of it, which doesn't happen all the time, but just enough that it was a little annoying. Obviously later on when you have more health and upgrades it doesn't really matter, but it still kind of fucking sucks. Oh, and before I forget, this is the only game where enemies can damage you during room transitions, which sucks because if you're low on health or just died and you're just trying to rush to a certain spot on the map, you can get trapped and die unfairly. I knew this from previous playthroughs in the past, so oftentimes I'd freeze a moving enemy before going through a door just to be safe, even if I had a lot of health and could take the hit. Climbing out of Norfair into the top of Brinstar here, we grab the Varia suit, Varia being a mistranslation of barrier. Here it cuts damage received in half and recolors Samus's sprite to be like this strawberry smoothie pink. Huh. Funnily enough, it's not my least favorite version of the Varia suit, but that's a video for another time. We grabbed the Varia suit because we're headed down to the Brinstar Depths, also known as Kraid's Lair. The enemies here do more damage, and the Varia suit is going to help a lot with getting through this area. The track that plays here sounds like cautiously pushing into enemy territory. Aware of the danger, but going forward nonetheless. Down at the very bottom, we find Kraid. His fight is essentially a bullet hell, flinging claw nails at you and shooting missiles out of his chest. I tend to just go in with full health and missiles and face tank damage while showering him in missiles. He kinda sucks, but if you just blast the fuck out of him with no regard to the damage you're taking, you'll kill him before he can even think of sending you back to the elevator. Maybe just try to come in with at least 4 E-tanks. Any lower and you'll probably die in a couple of minutes. Alright, Kraid's dead. You ready to spend 10 minutes trying to get out of this pit with these respawning blocks that can take damage and knock you all the way back down or even kill you? After getting out of that godforsaken hellhole, we gotta trudge back through Brinstar and Norfair to get to Ridley's lair. The track that plays here really feels like you shouldn't be here. Everything will kill you if you're not prepared. Here I grabbed the last E-tanks and missile expansions for 100%. When I started this, I wasn't intending to get every item, but I ended up doing it just because I would prefer to have extra missiles and health for the last area, then get stuck with no missiles and dying repeatedly. Finally, Ridley himself. Ridley in every other game tends to be my favorite boss, not just because I think he's cool, I mean he's a fucking space pterodactyl, but because he's usually a fun challenge. However, aside from Zero Mission, I've always found this to be one of the easiest Ridley fights in the series. He jumps in place and shoots 5 fireballs max at any time, but if you freeze those fireballs, he just kinda jumps in place defenseless, allowing you to wail on him with explosives, and he'll die in literally less than a minute. Don't worry, Ridley. One day you'll be a villain worthy of joining Smash Brothers. Just, find a way to pass the time. It's gonna be a while. With Ridley dead and his lair picked clean of upgrades, we're headed straight up to finally confront the Mother Brain. So I forgot to mention before, but to get to Torian, the final area of the game, you need to kill Ridley and Kraid, shoot these statues of them to open up a bridge, and then you can descend into Torian. Torian is genuinely oppressive. The menacing music, the hardest enemies in the Metroids, getting bombarded with these energy Cheerios, called Rinkas apparently. It's genuinely the hardest area of the game. It also introduces one orange door, which if you're a fan of the later games like I am and you've made it this far on a blind playthrough, you'll probably think you need power bombs or something to open it, but actually no, it just takes 10 missiles. Kinda neat if you ask me. The Metroids are here in their hardest incarnation of the series. You've got to freeze and blast them with 5 missiles, but they're mainly super difficult in this entry because if they latch onto you, you can only get them off with a Morph Ball bomb, and you can't fire your beam or missiles. However, unlike the later games where it's not that hard to get them off, it feels near impossible to get these little jellyfish fucks off of you, and they can stack, making it a miracle if you can get more than one off at once, and they also highlight one of my main issues with the game, where you need the ice beam to kill them. So I hope you didn't grab the wave beam before you got down here, because otherwise you gotta die, go get the ice beam, and grind for 20 minutes to get your energy and missiles back. Other than that glaring issue with the game design in general, I do actually enjoy fighting them. Mother Brain though? Fuck Mother Brain. I'm sorry, but you have to blast through these barriers called Zebatites, but you gotta blast them fast, because if you don't, they can regenerate. And pretty fast too. That's on top of the Rinkas flying at you, these turrets blasting you constantly, and the game barely holding itself together. At some points I swear you can count the frames and feel the strain the NES must have been under displaying this one boss room. You have 1 of 2 strategies here. Tank damage and keep consistent missile shots on the barriers to get through, and then just try to shoot Mother Brain with missiles as much as possible and hope you don't die before she goes down. Or, the smarter, but longer way of doing it, is to try to freeze the Rinkas in place, Stand on the edge of these platforms to be out of the turret fire, and then blast your way through the Zaboba barriers. Once you're at Mother Brain, it's practically required to freeze the Rinkas in place before just bombarding her with missiles. However, upon landing the final shot, Mother Brain's death activates a bomb that'll blow up the Space Pirate stronghold, which leads to the final first appearance of a series staple, a timed escape sequence. You have plenty of time to jump up this vertical shaft to the final elevator. Just take it a bit slow, don't rush it, and you'll make it. Also, enjoy the best track in the game. Metroid was super innovative for its time, being the first game of its type, but it's marred by technical limitations. Lots of copy-pasted rooms, death equaling a 10 to 20 minute grind to get back to full health, loose controls that while you can get the hang of, it's not really that fun, and the game barely running and chugging along sometimes when there's more than 2 moving things on screen gets grating after a while, with the Mother Brain boss fight being the worst example of that. However, despite its age, despite the years being anything but kind to it, I actually had fun with Metroid 1. It was fun seeing where the series' staples got their start from, things that changed in later games, and despite my complaining, I did think the Metroids were really cool to fight in this one with how threatening it was if they managed to latch on. Would I recommend this game to someone new to the series? No, absolutely not. If you're new to Metroid, play Zero Mission or Fusion. Hell, even Dread is a good starting point. However, if you've played a lot of the Metroid series, and you're really curious about the first game, give Metroid 1 a shot, and definitely use a map or a guide. You can beat it in an afternoon that way, and it'll be way more enjoyable for it. For now, I've been Joey. Drop a like if you like this video. You can probably tell I'm new to this style of video, but I've always wanted to do this kind of thing. If you have some criticism on how I can improve for the future, leave a comment. I'd appreciate it. I'll read and respond to as many as I can. Anyway, next time we visit the Metroid series, it'll be with Metroid 2, Return of Samus on the Game Boy. Subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.